welcome to my world.
Oh God, I bet.
Another day, another dick pic, honestly.
Oh my God. What? Why do people think?
I don't know. I have this conversation all the time. Why do I open Snapchat? Because I like to have my messages open so that anyone can message me, because sometimes you come across some really bloody lovely stuff and you're like, that put a smile on my face and that made my day. But sometimes you just get a cock in your face when you didn't ask for it, and it's not what you want. It's not at all what you want.
I'm sure it's not. I suppose for someone like you as well, like you're going through this whole process now, finally releasing music, which is great. I mean, let's be honest, it could have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, no shit.
But now that you've got it, and then you're having to connect with Instagram, there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more pressure on someone like you than there was on someone like me. Now, I didn't have social media.
Yeah, it's very strange. I think, to be honest, there's a lot of pressure. I might be naive in saying this, but there's a lot of pressure, and you have to work harder if you've been through a TV show, because people think that it gives you a golden ticket to fame, but actually the amount of radio stations and press that just, as soon as they read the word X Factor, they just skip over it.
Yeah.
Trash.
Yeah.
And to actually be taken seriously, having gone through a TV show like that, is just so hard.
No, it is. There's definitely a level of snobbery that comes with that, and it's like as soon as they see X Factor, I remember I experienced it almost immediately. I'm sure it was like the day after, and there was a massive thing, and I think it was The Sun, and it was a huge thing about how I had won it, and I was just, I'm sitting there absolutely like bewildered still that I've won it. Like, my song wasn't even out yet. I'm just kind of sitting there going, this is insane. Opened The Sun, and it was just this like real, it wasn't even about music, it was like a character assassination, really, based on nothing. And I remember just reading it down, and at the very last, I'll never forget the last thing it said, because it was like, it said something like a fresh-faced, insipid, talentless mummy's boy. And I remember reading that being like, whoa, wait, why? And where's that come from? Because it was, you could tell there was just like a hatred. It was like they hated me, and I was like, that's so strange. Apart from anything else, I taught myself how to play piano. Like, I'd say talentless is it's kind of unfair, even if you don't like my music. It's like, I taught myself how to play piano. I remember being like, okay, that's what I'm up against from day one. And I know that every other person, I've worked with people who, I remember another Scottish guy I worked with, a boy called Stevie McCrory, who won The Voice maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. And I remember having a very similar conversation with him about this, and he was a fantastic songwriter, and he was like, what, the hatred that you get when you win a show like that, it's like, there's not, I mean, it's a very strange, I don't know why it happens. I can't understand it.
I don't know what it is, because most of the time, I think, especially for me, like, I find that same snobbery sometimes in other artists, and just trying to go, do you know what, like, just because I went through a TV show, I still did the rounds of pubs and weddings. I taught myself how to play piano at 16. I wrote all my own songs. Like, do you want to be a bit nice?
It's like, I remember, I think I was a little bit older than you when I did the show. I think I was 22, maybe 22, 23, but I was signing on. I was signing on the dole in Glasgow, and had literally nothing going on. It's like, Fame Academy for me was almost like a kind of last go at music, having done the pubs and the weddings and all that other shit, before I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to go to uni or something and try and figure out, by the way, I'm good at nothing. So I'd be like, what else am I going to do? Some people will say I'm not very good at songwriting either, but it was like, at least I've been able to kind of fake my way through that. I I think that there's a desperation sometimes that leads you to that through certain doors, that some artists get lucky with, that they don't have to do that. And I feel as a songwriter, it's given me, doing something like that has given me a little bit of, I guess I've got an advantage in certain rooms, you know, because I understand what certain people have been through. Not even maybe having done a show, even the struggle it can be in music. Like, we're not brain surgeons, you know, we're not out there fighting coronavirus, but songwriting can be so destroying, you know, hours and hours and hours. You don't get paid. Generally, more often than not, no one will ever hear your songs. It's like,
and I think that's a common like misconception about songwriting and songwriters, is that no one understands that no one's being paid to be in that room on that day. No one's earning any money from writing that song. That song, probably 8 times out of 10, maybe more, songs will never get heard, because you sit in a room with 3-4 people and you sit there like this, just thinking, and you're scrolling through like apps that come up with words and rhyming words and synonyms, and you just like the brain power, and you leave just feeling drained. And I
mean, nothing exhausts me like that. Nothing in life has ever exhausted me like songwriting. And I'll never, it's funny again, I suppose there's a parallel with certain other careers where people will say, but you're very lucky to get to do what you do. And it's like, I entirely appreciate that. I am so fortunate that I get to do this for a job. Doesn't mean it's not hard. Doesn't mean that and more often than not, it's not just, like you said, that mental exhaustion that you get from sitting and having gone from like lots of talking to then sit for hours in silence because none of you know what the fuck to say. And then it's like mental torture. And then you have to try and do your normal life afterwards. It's really, and again, I know people will say, well, yeah, but you're still lucky and all that stuff, but you can't explain what that's like until you've done it.
No, not at all. Like, don't get me wrong, guys, my dream job and everything that I've done so far, I feel so blessed to have done. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I just can't be fucking bothered today because my brain is not in the mood to write a song.
Everything's relative. There will be Premier League footballers who are getting paid 200 grand a week who wake up some mornings and go, I hate football. I don't want to play football. It's like, it doesn't mean I'm not happy and privileged, but I bet there are days where they just don't want to do it.
For sure. Like in any job, I think everyone will feel like that. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, obviously, very lucky to do music every day.
I think as well with the type of songwriters that we're very similar songwriters. We like melody, we like to sit at the piano and figure out the structure of a song, and I think that's probably why, I mean, we've written, the world doesn't know yet, but we've written, you know, a couple of absolute like magnificent songs. And then there's an element of who knows if the world will ever hear them. It's just so weird. There's a couple in there that I know, there's 2 in my head in particular that it's like,
agreed,
you know, given the right chance, they take over the world. But it's just, you know, you've got one, Amsterdam, which isn't one of mine, but I will never forget when you played me that song.
Really?
Do you know, it's very rare. It's happened to me maybe 2 or 3 times as a songwriter, where someone has played something that has stopped me in my tracks to such an extent that I'm like, I wish I had written that. I wish that was one of mine. Amsterdam is you know, whatever happens, in my opinion, Amsterdam is one of the best songs I've ever heard.
Oh my gosh.
It's phenomenal.
That's insane. That is insane. But I feel like, I don't know, it's funny because from my fans and from my label, sometimes different people will have different opinions on songs, but from songwriters, everyone always seems to pick up on Amsterdam, and I'm like,
It's, I mean, maybe there is an element of it being a writer's song, but I think that means, see, sometimes for me, I think there's a big difference between maybe more of a fantastic pop record. Like there are some incredible pop records that are just brilliant, that I wouldn't necessarily say were classics.
Yeah.
Then you hear something every now and again that makes you think that feels like a classic. That's something that I could have heard 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and it would still be fresh. Mr. Capaldi is quite good at it. He's got a couple of songs that you think that could have been written, 20 years ago, and it would still be a smash. Adele and Sam Smith and all these types of people have got those types of songs. In my opinion, Amsterdam is definitely one of those songs. But I think you've got a couple more as well. One of the ones we did, a song called Windows and Walls, is just unbelievable.
And the nice thing about that is that we wrote it, me and you came to my flat, we sat at my piano, and it was a really sunny day, we had the balcony doors open, plate full of party rings, and we just had a really
That's right! I love that! Do you know what else? You're the first person I've ever been in a songwriting session with who said the plate of party rings and then offered me a nice lolly. It's like, oh yes!
We roll, honestly. But we had a very nice day, and that song, I don't think I've played it to anyone who doesn't love it. Like, it's one of those ones that you think of as being, if Adele came out with that, you wouldn't blink. You'd be like, of course, it's that type of real classic song. And it's funny, it'll be interesting. You must have, I wouldn't even like to guess how many songs you've got. Like, I would say over 200 now.
And at that point, you're still choosing or deciding, I suppose, who you are as an artist. And it's like, there must be so many songs in there that you're like, that's fucking brilliant. I'll probably never use it.
Yeah, it's really weird. To say I've only been doing it 2 years as well, like co-writing, the songs that I've come up with, and I'm just like listening to these, like, it's crazy because I feel like I've come on a lot having worked with other people and learned a lot in the past 2 years, but just being able to listen to these songs and go, they're really good, like, yeah, it's all right.
It's quite nice. I think that's one of the most important things of being a songwriter. If anyone's watching this and you have aspirations to be a songwriter, I think that 9 times out of 10 your songs aren't going to get used. Doesn't mean they're not good songs.
Yeah. It's
like, that can really get you down. It's like, oh, well, right, what's the point in writing another one? It's like, that's not the point in it. I've definitely written more songs that nobody will ever hear than the songs that I've done that people actually know. There's definitely way more of the but there's a couple in there that I think are some of the best stuff I've ever written, that will probably never be heard. You've got to learn to shrug that off, I think, which is hard.
Yeah. Look, while we're on that, let's talk about a couple of the songs that you have written that people have heard, because we touched on Lana Del Rey. So was it National Anthem? Yeah. That album in itself is amazing, but that song is just, it's got the fireworks and all the strings and stuff in it, and it's just like
that. It's funny, if there are I suppose I would say, if there were 2 songs that changed my life, Stop Living a Lie would probably be the first one, because that was my single.
Yeah.
And it was number 1. And then definitely National Anthem would be the other one, because to this day, it's like I've written a bunch, I've written so much since then, but it's amazing how often that's still the one that either people want to talk about, or I think that even amongst people who aren't songwriters, amongst Lana Del Rey fans, bizarrely, National Anthem always seems to be one of the, you've got Video Games and Born to Die and those unbelievable Justin Parker songs, and then National Anthem, which people just seem to have caught on to. So I think without having not met Lana and done National Anthem, I'm not sure I would have had this career. Because from that point onwards, I remember the day of National Anthem being released, I think I'm right in saying NME had picked up on the fact that I was one of the writers of it. And all of a sudden, overnight, I went from being the shit guy who won Fame Academy to being the guy who'd written National Anthem for Lana Del Rey. And it's, you know, I was the same writer, I was the same person, but all of a sudden external perspective had shifted. And from that point onwards, like, all of a sudden my career got, not easier because I still had to write the songs, but you were then allowed to write
more opportunities, and
exactly
doors.
Yeah, so but I remember that we wrote that song before, so obviously Born to Die was her first record, and she was getting told every single record label door had just closed in her face, and so she was trying to evolve into something a bit more pop, because she was just like, people think it's too weird, and I remember there was two conversations. There was one, we did all of our writing, I wrote 3 or 4 songs with Lana, and we did all of our writing in my mate's spare room in this little village in Surrey, and we used to take the train from central London, from Waterloo out to Claygate village in Surrey. And it's funny now thinking about someone as fucking glamorous as Lana Del Rey sitting on the train, sitting eating pencil sandwiches, like trying to figure out what we were doing, like how are we going to. I remember like her saying, you know, she was getting so much pressure really to evolve who she was, to be a bit more pop and a bit more. And I remember just sort of like having those conversations about, if you don't believe it, what's the point in doing it? You have to stay true to who you are as a writer and as an artist.
Yeah.
And I remember the day, again, it's like hearing Amsterdam. The first time she played me video games, I was just like, what are you doing? Like, this is the song. This is the... And because sometimes the song is just so good that it's so obvious that that's what it should be. And so I think that I like the fact that I've had a couple of those little moments. I got lucky. Lewis Capaldi played me Bruises, like when we were writing Lost on You, and he played me Bruises, and I was like, what are you doing? Just release it. It was so good.
Yeah. That was the other one I wanted to talk about as well, because obviously Lost on You was on the album. Was that the only one that you did that was released with him?
To date, yes. But yeah, he's a he's a force of nature.
That's one way of saying it. I mean, that I remember bumping into him when I was at a session, and I'd like heard Bruises on Spotify, and I think he was either just about to release the second EP with Someone You Loved on it, or he just had, I can't remember. But I remember thinking, like, his voice is sick. And like Bruises was like such a tune, and then I found Lost on You was that on the first EP?
It was actually the second. Lost on You was the second single.
Right.
So Lost on You is like 3 years old now.
Yeah.
But it was so funny. I think because, like, I remember I spoke to Lewis on the phone the morning Bruises came out, because I happened to be in America at the time, and it went #1 on New Music Friday in America, and he knew I was there, so he phoned me and he was like, "You go on Spotify, have a wee look and see if." And I was like, Jesus Christ, because it was like this kid, like, who nobody knew. And it was like #1 Lewis Capaldi, #2 Kendrick Lamar, #3 Calvin Harris. It's just like he exploded out of nothing, really. And Lost on You maybe was a little bit of a victim of how successful that was, because you're never going to get that again until Someone You Loved, which was like 2 years later. It was so hard to try and maintain the success of Bruises. I think if he didn't have Someone You Loved, I'm not sure like what would have happened after that. You know, he might have just moved on to his second record. But Someone You Loved is just such an absolute. There's a classic, you know.
He's done an Adele really in America,
yeah.
I would say, and possibly in the UK as well. I mean, obviously, I think it's just the start for him, and we've probably got a lot more very successful albums to come. But being a part of that, because it was on the album, wasn't it? Lost on You.
Yeah.
And that was a #1 album.
It's mad. It was #1 longer than Lana was. It's been mad. And don't get me wrong, Lewis is a perfect mix. Like, he's so funny online. In real life, he's fucking hilarious. But his Instagram is perfect. It's so perfect and so funny. But him as a songwriter, he's incredible. Like, that's not just... He's not a one-trick pony, you know. He's not just the funny guy with a great voice. He's genuinely, again, one of those phenomenal young songwriters who happens to have... I mean, yeah, he's caught on something with Instagram, but he backs it up, you know, with music. So I think that's something else I like about... You look at Lewis, who probably is an Instagram celebrity, then you look at, you know, the sort of thing that you've done through TV, etc. These types of avenues that you can use, they should be used. You should use TV, you should use Instagram, and as long as you can back it up with your music and a songwriter, it's like, what's the problem? And yeah, you know, I think I hope that when it comes down to when you eventually get to that point where you're like, the songs are just coming out and they're all just banging. The X Factor stuff should always be part of your story, but it becomes less important, you know? It's like the songwriting is the key thing.
I think I definitely got to that stage, like, when I first... It's kind of similar to what you were saying with Lana, like, when I first signed to my label, I went through 5 A&Rs in like a year, I think, or a year and a half, and just a lot of people that had a lot of opinions that I didn't necessarily agree with, and that made me question what I've been doing for the past 5 years, what songs I've been writing, what songs I've always wanted to release. And then I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't be that artist, maybe it's not going to work, maybe I should be like a Dua Lipa. And it just made me question all of these things, and I definitely came full circle and went, nah, like, I want to write songs that mean something to me. And I do find it quite hard as a songwriter sometimes to actually sit and write a song, because I might be like, do you know what, all I've been doing is writing songs and I've got fuck all else going on in my life. And there's nothing to inspire me. But for me especially, I just want to write songs that mean something, and that really tell a story and that people can relate to. And that's what's important to me, I guess.
And as an artist, that is funny as well. Again, that's the difference between being an artist and being a professional songwriter. More often than not, I'm taking other people's stories.
Yeah.
I can help to write them, I can help articulate them, and maybe there's times where I can help say something in a prettier way to make it better in a song. But ultimately, it's another person's story.
Yeah.
When you're writing, it's harder because it's got to be your story. And there's only so many things that you can write about in a certain way. So to have 200 songs.
I can guarantee 70% of them absolute shite.
What are you writing about today? I was on the tube and I looked out and saw a really big crow. Is that a thing? Can we write that?
Funnily enough though, that's how Amsterdam came about, because I actually went into the session and I was like, I'm not gonna lie boys, I have fuck all to say. And I was like, I've been writing non-stop for like a year and I don't have anything. And they were like, well, what, even minor things, what's going on in your world? And I was like, my boyfriend's in Amsterdam at the moment. Weird, isn't it?
Boom.
There you go.
Boom.
Yeah, songwriting's weird.
Songwriting is weird, and it's funny, we were talking about this a little bit before we came on here, but songwriting now, in this experience with the pandemic, it makes you realise and appreciate how much our job, how important it is to actually be with people. Like, I know there are some songwriters and producers who are happy to do this like Zoom writing, and it's not me. Like, I need to be in the room with people. because it's so, especially if you're writing, like you said, if you're writing a song that's personal, and you know, it doesn't, even if the topic is a little bit deep, I would so rather do that in the room with a person than have them free. You know, they're sitting on Zoom and all of a sudden it's like, sorry, I missed that. What? What is that? Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Very strange. But yeah, cool. Well, thank you for chatting to me about songs and being on TV.
I tend to. That's the funny thing. I can't help it.
No,
also, I haven't spoken to anybody else for 6 weeks. Basically, been my 4-year-old kid. So, I don't want to talk.
We've all gone a little bit mad by this point. But I really appreciate you coming on, and I think people are going to I just find it personally interesting, so maybe it's just like a selfish thing, but I think fans will just like to hear how we kind of write songs, and especially Wolves and things like that. I know that my fans have such a love for that song, and you have been an incredible part of my journey, so thank you so much.
Aw, thanks, G.
That's all right.